Hey, good morning and welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways, Coyote in the Highlands. It's going to be a warm day. I want to talk a little bit about anthrax today, okay? It's kind of an odd topic, but let's just hear me out. I went through a phase in life where I went to the ER quite often. So I have lung damage and I've got some pretty serious breathing issues at times. And that actually led me to an autoimmune cleansing diet and outdoor lifestyle, and we'll talk about that as we go. But at one point in time, I was a baker. I baked bread every day. I was doing all sorts of artisanal breads. I had different rooms with different sourdough cultures in the apartment, which was an apartment with carpeting, which is part of the problem. And that was the year where I maxed out on the ER. I made 14 ER trips in 12 months. And every one of them was some sort of lung issue. You could call it an asthma attack. It's pretty similar, but it's technically slightly different in the nomenclature. But just think of it as an asthma attack. Same basic thing. And it is an inflammatory response, just like almost all of asthma is an inflammatory response. And then you get into some cases where you have permanent damage to go with the inflammatory response. You get COPD and emphysema and all sorts of stuff. Well, that year, 14 trips, that was the year that I did the most baking. And that was, when I stopped baking and I suddenly hadn't gone to the ER for 2 months, it was kind of an eye-opener. And that was my first step on what's become a very strange journey in terms of nutrition and toxicity and indoor air quality and everything else I rant about. So I went to the ER. One of these times. This was, this is obviously 2001, 2002, that time frame. And this was shortly, I don't remember if it was still 2001 or if we passed into January, February, but shortly after the 9/11 attacks, I went into an ER. I was blowing, there's different ways of categorizing a lung patient at different points in time. At that time, for whatever reason, they didn't use SATs. They didn't have the little finger oxygen saturation sensors. So, you couldn't say, I was probably pulling in at 86. I don't know. But I was blowing, so liters per minute of exhalation, I was blowing under 400, which is just absolutely insane. Most asthma patients who have long-term chronic damage and stuff will blow over 500 when they're not having an asthma attack. If I'm really clear and having a really good day and I'm out in the country and everything, I'll actually blow 650, as much as 700 at times. So there's stuff going on. I have a really powerful lung complex. It just doesn't work very well in many cases. So there I am, blowing under 400. I am desperate. Like I'm turning colors. I can't walk. So what do? Well, there's an anthrax scare, don't you see? So all of the medical professionals and the science have decided that they're going to put in special protocols. They literally put me in a closet with no airflow and no vents, closed the door, left me until my, at the time, girlfriend, significant other, started yelling and panicking because I was going to die. So some point in time, 15, 20 minutes later, they bring in a portable nebulizer and have me start second, and nothing improves. At this point, they've got me hooked up to the machines, and nothing improves for the next hour. They give me 3 treatments, and it's bad. And they finally decide that I probably don't have anthrax, and I'm probably not spewing spores of death. And they get me to a bed and put me on oxygen, and things get much better, much quicker, because it turns out that I was actually going downhill at that point. I was getting, I was very uncomfortable, and I was leading to the, man dies of asthma in the ER. And here's the thing. They knew exactly what was wrong with me. This wasn't even my first trip that month, But they had these new protocols in place. So they knew what was wrong with me. They knew that I was a frequent flyer, but they knew what the protocols are for dealing with that kind of lung condition, what you do for the patient. And they ignored all of that. They put it all away, you know. Of course, the ER doctor who was on shift, I've met him several times. He preferred prednisone over oxygen. His idea was that relaxing the patient and getting everything calmed down and getting the distress part solved didn't help anything, and that it was all about prednisone and big drugs, you know, big steroids. So he was an interesting character, but he wasn't in charge of the protocols. You know, he's just the guy who liked to limit the oxygen and hand out the prednisone in the ER bed. So the protocols were stupid. They were stupid. I'm fairly certain that they did actually kill some people in the United States. I'm fairly certain that there were a couple people who died one way or another because of these protocols over something that was 100% completely fake, media-created panic. And that was the whole thing. It was there. It was created out of thin air with nothing. You know, some crazy piece of mail someone sent with some flour in it or something. There was never any anthrax. Nothing. Ever. Anywhere. So the whole panic was made up. And no one ever questioned it. You know, at the time, no one questioned. No one said, oh, hey, where did they get a hold of this anthrax? Oh, hey, what's the source? What labs are we talking about? You know, are there any audits? No one did any of that. It was just, oh, anthrax. It was a big media scare. And so we put into place a bunch of nonsense protocols, but they were defended as being scientifically based. And I just want to point that out, that I've been through this on the bad side more than once. And so when you talk about the last couple of years and some of the crazy stuff people did that makes no sense and doesn't have a scientific basis, they defend it with the opposite of science. So in a scientific procedure method, what you would do is you would take a theory. You would say, I have a theory. I have this idea. We're going to test it. The first time you can make a replicable test that says, nope, doesn't work, it's not a theory anymore. It's out the window. You just go, gone, poof. Well, here's what's backwards, okay? Right now, the way it works, especially when you're dealing with potential pandemics or so-called public health or government offices and pharmaceutical companies, the way it works is we will find a case where it works, one case out of 5 million people where it does work, and then we will make it mandatory for everyone to take it because we found one case where it does work. The rest of the time, where the theory is completely broken, doesn't matter. It's exactly inverted. It's really crazy. So I don't have a lot of trust for these things, and I can sense that we're coming down the road. I've been reading the headlines, and the headlines for the monkeypox, which is about to be renamed, and might be renamed by the time this video comes out, because it's apparently the World Health Organization has determined that the name is racist because they think monkey. Yeah, never mind. Just not even gonna really address that one. Anyway, whatever they rename monkeypox to, the narratives, the headlines are already out there. I've read the same phrasing in multiple headlines in multiple states. And the phrasing is that monkeypox is a disease that can be spread through physical contact with sores or skin or liquids or body fluids or surfaces and fibers that an infected person has touched. And they've got this one really bad, okay? This one isn't a breathing one, all right? Not yet. They will. They absolutely will. They will report that. But this is a wonderful made-for-TV pandemic that they're working on, because this gets you all of the isolation, all of the gloves and surface barriers and no touch shopping and no one allowed to go in stores or leave their houses. This really is a lockdown kind of disease, because that's why they're phrasing. Now it turns out that it's actually very hard to get, and you don't just touch a sore. You have to get the liquid from an infected sore into your mucous membranes. It's actually harder to get than they want to talk about. But that's the point of the media, is to put these fear programs in place. And so I think back to the anthrax scare. No one really remembers that anymore. Probably half of you listening to this literally don't remember it because that was like, you may have been 6 years old, you may have not been born yet. 7 years old, whatever. But I've been through this before, and I have a very low level of trust. Now, the theory is, of course, that the next time it might be real, so we have to go along with it. All the lies, all the BS, all of the restrictions, because someday it might really matter. That's the opposite of the theory, remember? It's the opposite of how sane science works. So I just wanted to mention that, tell the story. You know, it's not a downer, but when it comes time to deal with the restrictions and the next set of scare tactics, stay aware of yourself and remember what they've done in the past. And maybe take it with a grain of salt. You know, you might have hug parties. Go hug people so they don't kill each other or themselves in depression when the next set of lockdowns just turns into 1 year of no exercise outdoors. So, to end it on a positive note, remember that the resistance part of this is entirely up to you and that you are free to do what you would like. Okay? Stay sideways.